Huh?
Feels good. Turn it up.
You don't want me to start clothes. They will make me leave.
Keep threatening that. I said you keep threatening that. Is he drawing something over there?
Yeah. You thought it's something you can do over there.
Here.
We're overtime.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January 9th, 2024 Graham City Council meeting. And if I could please get Bobby, say the blessing.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we can come together as the city council to take care of our residents' business. We ask that you watch over all those in our community with rain that we have right now and the hard winds. Keep everyone safe, and especially emergency workers who will be out in this weather. Father, we ask that you guide us in our deliberation, grant us wisdom and discernment in our discussion, and exercise wisdom in our decisions. These things we ask in your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The consent agenda reads as follows. A, to approve the December 12th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, December 18th, 2023 special budget planning session, and to approve and seal the December 12th, 2023 closed session meeting minutes. B, to approve tax releases totaling $200.23 and tax refunds totaling $362.10. C, to approve a resolution awarding a police badge and side service arm to retired police officer Christopher T. Denny. D has been removed from the consent agenda. E is to approve the City of Graham pay plan revisions effective January 14th, 2024, and approve a budget amendment for $128,706 for departmental adjustments.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to have item B D, I'm sorry, D. Removed from the, consent agenda.
Yeah, already.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
did that.
Good.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve or deny the consent agenda?
We approve the consent agenda, items A, B, C, and E.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing. The rezoning of 53.904 acres near Mayfield Drive. A public hearing has been continued to consider rezoning 53.904 acres from R18 low density to CR conditional residential to extend the fourth phase of Roger Springs to construct an additional 85 single-family homes located near Mayfield Drive. Planning Board recommended approval 7-0, and this was continued from the December 12th, 2023 City Council meeting. Recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and I think you summed it up pretty well there. This was an item that was on last month's agenda, was continued to this month's meeting, with the applicant looking to update the plan based on council comments to show having at least 70-foot wide lot widths. I believe they're here to speak on it. If you have any further questions, I believe that was the only comment that they were asked to look into. Staff did run it through TRC for preliminary discussion, which there wasn't anything that was going to stop them from being able to widen the lots to 70 feet wide.
This is a public hearing, so anybody who would like to speak on the proposed rezoning? Okay,
Jason Ewing for Sugar Homes, 221 Jonestown Road, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. You all have the revised site plan, so if there's any questions, we've had a lot of discussion over the last few months on this, so I'm here if you have any new questions.
so tell us a little bit, just briefly, of the changes that you made from last council meeting to this council meeting.
Yes, ma'am. So the lots have all been widened to a minimum of 70 foot per our conversation in December. And that also achieved, I believe, one of the concerns that you all collectively had with the homes being closer together. It created more gap between the building footprints themselves, being the 70 foot. And if you got a chance to look over the site plan, you'd see that there were some, just based on the geometry, we didn't want to move the connecting streets that connect to the adjacent parcels. So there were some lots that ended up being a little bit wider than 70 foot, which will accommodate even more gap between the buildings.
And so between the homes, you have how much, how much footage? The side setbacks, they didn't change, they right?
The side setbacks are still the standard 8-foot side setback, I believe. But with the Vanguard product, which is what we're building in Roger Spring, is a 44-foot wide product, is the largest width we have, 42 and 44. I believe the average was between 25 and 27 feet between the homes.
What is the setback what would be the setback as it is zoned now, Aaron?
You talking about
Side setback,
under the R18 or what?
R18. And you went from 92 homes, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
92 to 85?
The last plan was 92 homes in phase 4, and widening the lots to the 70 foot reduced the density by 7
So you have 15 for R18.
And your side setback is 8, is that right?
That is the ordinance, which with the 70-foot wide lots, the setbacks are gonna be much greater than 8 foot.
Oh, okay, so do you know what your side setbacks will be?
It'll vary based on the lot, so just on a 70-foot wide lot, 70 minus 45 is gonna give you 25 foot.
13 feet.
Yeah.
26 foot at the widest, and then 13 feet side setback on each side.
What's the least side setback you're gonna have?
The
13,
13.
13,
13.
that's the widest, 44, correct?
correct.
So 13 to 15, right?
Yeah, I don't know what your other plans are, but the
Yeah,
maximum is 40.
we've got a couple plans that are 42 foot wide, so that would just add another foot to each side. And then, like I said, there are a number of lots that are wider than 70. I think there's a row that's in the 72 or 73 foot.
He has several that are pushing close to 20,000 square feet. I want to say you have a dozen of them that were over 13,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then some of your lots there that come to the cul-de-sacs were anywhere from 15 to 20 some odd thousand square feet. So
But the minimum setback would be 13.
what the minimum based on the zoning would be on the R9-8, but what he's saying, the product they're using, with, on the 44-foot wide would give them 13 feet based on that. But if the applicant is agreeable to a number,
But if this is conditional residential, so when we say it's not gonna be less than 13, then it's not gonna be less than 13.
right, that's what I was getting at. If the applicant's agreeable to whatever number y'all state, then that number would then become site specific to the setback required for the building envelope.
Are you agreeable to that, sir?
I'm okay with making the side setbacks larger. We usually like an additional foot just for surveying, when they do the plot plans, just if they survey a little bit, that we don't encroach on that minimum setback. So if 12 foot would work for you all, then
I would be
okay with-
agreeable to 12 foot. Is everybody else okay with that? Would you be okay with that?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you have any other comments or concerns?
No, just thank you for working with us and getting those, lots.
Absolutely.
I think
absolutely.
it's gonna
Increase.
look really
It's gonna look a
nice.
lot better, I think,
Yeah.
you
it
know,
is.
it really will. I mean,
And everybody wants to come to Graham. I feel like you're gonna be able to still make your money, and I hate, I know developers hate it when they have to go down in density, but I think overall the product is better, and I think you're gonna have a wonderful development. Bobby, do you have any comments?
Hmm.
Joey,
Oh, ma'am. Thank you for coming to Graham.
thank you very much. I hope you feel welcome here.
Yes, absolutely. We love this project, and right now we are probably just under 25% sold, including what phase 4 will yield. So we plan on being here for a number of years and providing nice rooftops for your residents.
Yeah, I know there's nothing available right now. It's just incredible. And look, now Bucky's is coming too.
Mhm.
this area, and that'll be a lot more jobs. So a lot more people move into the area. So, yes.
This question, is the fourth phase the final phase, or are there yet additional ones?
The fourth phase is the final phase that we own any land. This track, the 56-acre track, was acquired, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, but for some reason it just wasn't rezoned when the land for phase 1 through 3 was zoned. But we don't own any more contiguous land to this project.
Hey, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on, in regards to this rezoning near Mayfield? You'll state your name and your address.
Chris Faust, 4990 Highway 62 South. I just, I'm for this guy. I think he really went over and beyond what he should have. I've got the land all around it, and going forward, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I've heard the road widths are a problem, but they said that since the road widths were smaller in the previous phases, we'll let this go. But everything else around us R9, y'all said that you want to keep conformity. These sites are rough. This site here is rough. My site's rougher. You're making it hard for these developers, and these guys, it's just in my head, $600,000 what you cost them. And y'all's 7 lots don't sound like much, but when your profit margin is so small, my place may sit down there. It's been landlocked for years. It may just have to sit down there landlocked. You're making it impossible for some of these. If it's going to be R9, no R9, you want R18. He went over and beyond R18. I mean, he went way over beyond what you told him with the setbacks. He just agreed to 4 more feet, which is 8 foot. The roadways, in my opinion, you shouldn't be parking on the roadway. I know they said last time people can park on one side of Highway 62 is 20 foot wide. DOT streets are 2 foot wide. So if y'all want to make the streets bigger, Graham, that's just more maintenance on Graham, more down the road on Graham, more up from the developer. I agree, this is a nice product, but you're just going to make it harder on other people if you're going to hold everybody's feet to the fire. We're not doing them. We want R12 and R18. When you got difficult sites in this town that's left. I remember coming to one of these meetings when they done the last phase of Broad Acres. And my granddaddy brought me, this probably in the 80s, back where the townhomes and where Joey and them live. And people didn't want it. People don't like growth. I mean, there was people talking about Buc-ee's last night, and I think it's a good thing. But people don't like growth, and especially residential growth, but they say it costs us money, trash and stuff like that. But the people eat in your restaurants, buy fuel at your stations, go to your restaurants, go uptown. So don't always frown on development because of density, because it costs money. And I'm just stating, just in the future, because these guys really done, and like I said, we may not be, but there's going to be more developers that come up here asking for R9, and it looks like no more R9. I mean, I'm doing lots that are way smaller than R9. I develop a lot of lots every year. And here I can't even, in the city of Graham where I live, this is my home place here. I can't even put them in there. So I just thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. If there's no more public speakers, do I hear a motion and a second to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion and a second to approve or deny the rezoning?
Madam Mayor,
And
I
make
move-
sure that the motion includes the setbacks of minimum of 12 feet.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the rezoning of the 53.904 acres located off Mayfield Drive from R18 low density residential to CR conditional residential, and that it does further the Graham 2035 comprehensive plan and the City of Graham developmental ordinance, and it is consistent with policy 5.11 and 3.3.2 and strategy 4.3.1 per the Graham 2035 comprehensive plan. And with the condition that all lots meet the 9,000 square foot requirement, each lot to have it at least a 70-foot wide lot width, with the active open space incorporated as recreational use such as a dog park, gazebo, playground, etc., and to install fencing around the active open space area if appropriate, and also with the caveat of having a minimum of a 12-foot setback.
Do I hear a second?
Second motion.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Number two, annexation, 53.904 acres near Mayfield Drive. A public hearing has been considered to consider an annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits to the city of Graham for a tract of land totaling 53.904, not quite done yet, located near Mayfield Drive. Recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
Thank you again. The attached petition is a request for council's approval for an extension of the corporate limits to include the subject properties that you just mentioned. The area being considered for annexation is located off Mayfield Drive and contains approximately 53.90 acres total. Water and sewer are located adjacent to this property within the Mayfield Drive right-of-way, and the applicants wish to tie on to the city's infrastructure. New residential property generally creates positive tax revenue for the city, and because the public services are being connected at the site, the cost to the city is minimal. Staff does recommend approval.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this issue tonight regarding annexation? If none, do I hear a motion and a second to close the public hearing?
Madam Mayor, make motion to close the public hearing.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the annexation, ordinance to extend the corporate limits to the, of the city of Graham for the tract, totaling 53.904 acres off of Mayfield Drive.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Welcome to Graham. Thank you so much. Special use permit, 616 Hollow Street. A public hearing has been continued to consider a special use permit for a group home for property located at 616 Hollow Street. This has been continued from the December 12th, 2023 City Council meeting. I recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for a special use permit for a group home for property located at 616 Hollow Street. There's currently an existing single-family dwelling on the site. Under the current development ordinance, a group home is a facility with support and supervisory personnel that provides room and board, personal care, or rehabilitative services in a residential environment for not more than 6 people. Granting this special use permit would permit up to 6 unrelated individuals to reside within the unit. Planning board reviewed the application and forwarded the item to council without recommendation. The attorneys will need to read the statement related to the special use process and swear any individuals that may wish to speak. As this is a special use permit request, the applicant must prove to meet the following 6 findings of fact. Bear with me. 1, all applicable regulations of the zoning district in which the uses proposed are complied with. 2, conditions specific to each use identified by the development ordinance are complied with. Number 3, the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plan as submitted. Number 4, the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property or that the use is a public necessity. 5, the location and character of the use is, if developed according to the plan as submitted, will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and in general conformity with the plan of development for the Graham planning area. And number 6, satisfactory provision has been made for the following applicable: vehicle circulation, parking and loading, service entrances in the area, screening, utilities, signs, and lighting, and open space.
Okay.
I'll turn it over to the.
This is a public hearing for those witnesses who've taken the oath. If you're wishing to testify in this, matter, I need you to come forward and raise your right hand and put your hand on the Bible, right?
So the attorneys have to read the statement
Oh,
first,
okay.
and then we
Sorry.
can swear in the individual.
Okay.
Okay, just bear with me. This is a hearing, this hearing is a quasi judicial evidentiary hearing. That means it's like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decision. These rules are different from other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases. The council's discretion is limited. The council must base its decision upon competent material and substantial evidence in the record. It is a decision that must be based on the standards in the ordinance and based on the facts presented. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. This meeting is open to the public, however, participation is limited. Parties with standing have rights to present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Parties are limited to the applicant, the local government, and individuals who can show they will suffer special damages. Other individuals may serve as witnesses when called by the city council. General witness testimony is limited to facts, no opinions. For certain topics, the council needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include predictions about impacts on property values and predictions about impacts of increased traffic. Individuals providing expert opinions must be qualified as experts to provide the factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinion. Inadmissible evidence is deemed objected to. Any documentary evidence that is certified or from a recognized professional source with authentication will be admitted. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. So at this time, anybody who wants to testify or be a witness, if they'll come forward and take the oath. Aaron, you want to-
Hello, good evening. My name is Linda Montgomery. My address is 2076 Jeffries Cross Road in Burlington. I'm here tonight to petition the court for the special use permit for the group home. As you said, can go up to 6 residents. I am only going to look to house 4. As I was telling the previous meeting, not before you're all, the step before, there's 2 staff members at all times. So there would be, a staff member to 2 kids, supervision at all times. None of the residents are ever permitted to leave the premises, even go outside by themselves. It's high supervision. Some of these kids do have behavioral problems, but that's why I limited, a 2-to-1 ratio. I know that security was a question at the meeting I was at before. We plan on having the whole package, the cameras, alarms on windows and doors. Staff will have a handheld device at all times that will ding, make a noise if the kids try to open a window or go outside. Like kitchen utensils, knives, anything sharp, locked up into another room in the staff room where the kids cannot get a hold of it. We have restraint trainings in place for mental health and IDD, de-escalation trainings, plus incentives to make it favorable for the kids to stay and not try to run. They have some group homes that have a history of kids running. That's why I limited to 4 children for this particular home. I'm trying to produce and provide a therapeutic environment for these kids. Some of them are taking out of the home not on their own doing. It can be from their parents. There's an intense screening process too. I do not plan on taking the worst of the worst. I'm looking to take ones that are looking to improve. that are willing to take the classes. We're going to offer classes not offered in traditional schooling, like credit classes, how to keep a bank account, what they're to expect when they age out. A lot of these kids age out and go to homelessness. They have nowhere to go after that, and quite frankly, at a lot of these group homes don't teach them life skills. They don't know anything when they come out. They don't know anything about a budget, financial aid, for school. They don't have anyone to guide them. So with the therapeutic atmosphere that's going to be counseling, I'm trying to work out with the counselor now to come to the house so that transportation doesn't even have to be provided, but all transportation will be provided by staff. If I can work it out to where they can come into the house, that limits kind of like missing school, just being absent from things that they need to be in. I am currently in the process of trying to get a program started with Burlington Christian Academy now, to put these kids in a different environment, a more structured, smaller classrooms. It's more one-to-one working with them. My son graduated from BCA, so I know that they have a very good track record with some of these less fortunate kids. But it's expensive to go there, so I'm trying to start some type of program so that the children can go, through DSS, that they'll have the opportunity scholarship, plus maybe some type of financial aid program that they will work with either myself or DSS to get these kids into that program. Let's see. There was a question I had about the property devaluing, or if it's going to improve property value. Once we're up and running, right now the property is completely fenced in. There might be one panel that's down because they had to do some work on the side of the house. I'm not sure if that's up yet. But as I get up and running, I do plan on making upgrades to the landscaping of the area, because right now it's not the prettiest. But I do plan on replacing the entire fencing in the yard. There's nothing wrong with it now. It's just a little bit older from where, wear and tear. So I do want to improve the fencing area around there. And I've been looking into, there's a stone wall that I'm going to get replaced, and maybe possibly paving the driveway now. The kids that will be there, some of them may be of driving age, but because of the environment they're in, they'll be placed with DSS. It's a level 3 group home. They are not permitted to drive. So the parking really is only for staff, which will be 2 at all times. So about 2 cars, maybe 3 at the most, if I'm there, during the shift or what have you. There's also room to park in the back of the house. You can open one of the gates and go up to the back, where it's easier to access if you have where I had lived there previously. I was on crutches. That's what we did to get me up into the house. I was hoping that some of the neighbors that were supporting me with this would be here tonight, but they're not. I guess when it's talking to some of the neighbors, the main concern was safety. Questions were asked, do I have insurance? I have extensive insurance. I'll be paying upwards to $1,100 to $1,500 a month for insurance in the event that something does happen. But with my small numbers and staff trainings, I do not anticipate that happening. I plan on starting the jobs at a fairly decent wage. I haven't quite figured that out to the number yet, but I'm trying to attract people that want to work, and I need quality workers for these kids, not somebody that's just coming in. So the trainings are going to be extensive. The application process is they have to do background checks, as well as the kids. I do background checks on the kids with DSS. I ask them the nitty-gritty. I don't turn kids away because of a bad behavior. I look more at whether or not they're open to change. You have to meet these kids, you have to engage with them. So it's not so much as easy, they call me up and say, hey, I got a kid, I'm taking them. No, there is a screening process. So the neighbors were concerned about the worst of the worst. I do not plan on taking the worst of the worst. Procedures that if happens that they do not work at the house, they will be giving a 30-day notice and they will be transferred. If the behavior is severe enough, from just where I have worked, I've seen them take them out in as little as 72 hours. So there's not a security risk for the neighborhood. Quite honestly, I feel that being in a neighborhood would be much more beneficial for these kids. They need like a family atmosphere almost. Sometimes they just need someone to listen to them and care. Um, so that's what we're trying to provide is a family atmosphere for these kids, but with the realization of what they're to expect. I have articles here that show there's upwards to a little over 11,000 children in foster care right now with hardly any foster care homes to put these children in. They're staying the night in the prisons, in emergency rooms, on DSS couches. Um, at any given time, there's 50 kids at a time staying in these unfavorable places. A lot of times they're locked into a room and cannot have access to outside. They are confined to a room, kind of like solitary confinement. When they end up sleeping in the DSS offices, it requires 2 workers to take care of these kids. So it's causing a strain on the workers. They're having to get paid to do this. I'm just trying to offer an outlet, a positive outlet with a therapeutic outlet for these kids and not exclude them to just institutions and try to show them there's better than to choose the path that they are currently on. And I must apologize, with the storm, I had packets together. I salvaged what I could. We had a little accident, so I wasn't able to have one for everybody, so I apologize for that.
Do you want to hand out what you do have?
Well,
Thank you.
I apologize for the pictures as well. The house is not put together. We kind of started to slow down with trying to do things because I was getting ahead of myself and I didn't realize the extent of the process was to open it. So I had started getting stuff for the group home and stuff. So we had thrown it in there and due to my little tobacco coming out of the house, I was forced to grab old packets. And so this is the house, but the pictures are quite a mess. I apologize.
So, but this isn't foster care, right?
No, it's a group home. So there'll be referrals through DSS mainly, replacement.
Okay, and you said your insurance is between $1,100 and $1,500 a month?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, have you ever had a group home before?
No, I've worked at them. I've never owned one, but I have worked at them since I've been, let's see, since I've been 20 years old. I'm 43, so it's been 23 years. I've worked at behavioral homes, starting in Rhode Island. Mainly these kids were kids straight from the Juvenile Justice Center, in place. It was a step down before they went home. That involved sexual abuse cottages and just behavior cottages themselves. Down here, I was mainly focused in family care homes with the elderly, but I did work with some of the IDD population, focusing mostly on Down syndrome. I do have custody of a brother with Down syndrome, so we do a lot of programs with him, and I volunteer a lot of time with them. And then being down here, I've worked with quite a few kids that are in the system right now. I work closely with DSS, trying to do things I can to help better the kids. I currently have actually family members in the system. So at her group home, you know, I have a lot of experience going in there and volunteering with the girls and helping out with them. So I have kind of a behavioral background. But no, I have not ever owned one or.
So the one here, you haven't owned a group home or worked in a group home that's got level 3 offenders, is that right?
No, in Rhode Island I did. It just hasn't been here in North Carolina.
Okay.
I was a medication aide for a group home in actually Providence, Rhode Island. It was for teens based from 12 to 17 years old. And there was 3 separate houses.
And what level were they?
They were level 3. They were constant supervision. Well, up there it was based on letters, not numbers, but it would equivalent to a level 3. It was constant 24-hour supervision, awake staff at all times, and 2 staff on at all times.
Okay.
So are you
And-
currently licensed in North Carolina now, or?
Well, I have started the licensure process, but through the advice talking to some of the people at VIA, they advised me maybe I should go through this process first
Okay.
and then go ahead. So I'm not projected to open anytime soon. It would be within the next couple of months because it does take, after speaking to the people at the insurance, it does take a month and a half, sometimes we stretch to 2 months to get the insurances because it's so extensive on what I do need to cover everything. And the, you know, the fees associated with licensure, I can go ahead and get the licensure all day, but if I can't, you know, get the approval, I'm kind of dead in the water. So
Right.
I was a little stuck on where I should do with that. I didn't know if I should go ahead and apply, but then if I'm denied, I
Right.
kind of just halted my brakes a little bit.
I'm kind of confused because I thought there was a moratorium on the group homes right now. Did you have to get permission from, I thought,
Yes.
Aaron, I was trying to look in the report. It was in the first time when it was on in December. What's the name of the organization?
That would be my organization when I'm
No,
Via
there's,
Health.
no, it was listed on the, paperwork from December's meeting. They're out of Charlotte, aren't they? Aren't they the ones that approved, that agency that approves group homes?
That would be through my LME, that would be Via Health. I do have a letter of recommendation. I hope to God that they have sent me a letter of recommendation. So I do have their support. I apologize. I'm so embarrassed. I cannot believe that this happened. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a hard copy of the letter of recommendation. Oh, yes, I do.
And are you currently renting that location at 616?
We own that location. It's a family location. It's, well, technically my mother-in-law owns the location, but, she's allowed me to take it over if I'm allowed to open the group home and open the group home. With managing the family care home for the last 5 years, I'm pretty confident. It's just a change in paperwork, basically.
So you said you're gonna have 4 kids, is that what you said?
Yes.
And what ages would they be roughly? Between?
Generally, the ages for group homes tend to be older children, but I've seen them from about 9 to usually about intake 16, 17. It depends on the child. It just depends on the referrals and when they come in, but I naturally can't room, you know, once I get an age group in there, that's the age group I'm gonna try to stay with, because I can't room certain ages with other ages, and
Right.
if, certain backgrounds with the behavior reports, they might have to have a single room versus a shared room. There's only one room that would be shared, the other 2 would be single rooms. But, you know, I could only have 3, depending on what the history is with the child and whether they
Right.
get room or not. So then that would be 2 staff to 3 children.
Okay, I understand.
So it says this letter is a letter of support. for facilities to be located in this area, catchment area, but it says it's not an endorsement, or to be interpreted as any guarantee of contract referrals, business, or occupancy of beds. So is that saying that they via health, out of Asheville, are they the ones that actually have the licenses from the state?
Well, I have to file with the state as well with VIA, so I have to adhere to rules and regulations for both entities. So once I get the licensure from the state, then VIA will accreditate me as a home.
Is
But-
that a guarantee?
Well, when I talked to the head lady there that deals with licensing the group homes, from what I understand, if they give me a letter of support, that they deem that there's a need for the group homes. So many kids not having placement, I got that letter within the day. And then I just have to go through pretty much the paperwork process, but with the fees associated, again, I kind of, after talking to her, she was like, well, it might be a good idea to get the okay before we go ahead and jump the gun and do all this. And then I have all this stuff and I can't do anything with
And
it.
you're saying you'd be having to pay for 2 people per child?
2 employees, yes, there has to be 2 staff members on at all times.
For all 4 children?
Yes. So
Okay,
there would-
so it's not 2 per child though, right?
No,
be-
no,
okay,
ma'am. I meant
okay.
2 children per 1 staff.
Okay,
Said it backwards.
okay, and then, what are are all these children would be from Alamance County? They currently living in Alamance County, or are they being brought in from other counties?
Well, that's the issue here. Alamance County doesn't have very many placements. I have a niece and 2 nephews that were from Alamance County, and they've had to be placed in separate counties all over the state because of lack of placement. Sometimes, depending on the child and the issue, whether it's a risk of parent, wanting to find the child or the child wanting to run, they do like to place them in other counties so that there is nowhere to run. There's no incentive like, oh, I can run 2 blocks over and go to so-and-so's house. So it really depends on the child, the referral that I get. That's what the intake packet would be. That would include, it's going to be, I need to know details before I take these kids. I'm not trying to cause my staff grief, the neighborhood grief. I don't want to be sticking out like a sore thumb. The purpose is therapeutic, and that's what I intend. So the child has to fit our mold, if you will, and be able to be a suitable fit for the house, for safety of the staff, safety of the children, and just smooth running of the business in general.
So, level 3, what kind of, crimes would be associated with, like, if you could explain for the council the difference between level 1, level 2, level 3?
Well, that's perfect. Level 1, I believe level 1 was defined as a non-traditional foster placement. Level 2 was a therapeutic foster placement. Level 3 was group home. For example, I have a niece in level 3. What ended her in there is runaways. She was posting inappropriate pictures online, stealing, things of that nature, not going to school, truancy, and her mother not taking a proactive approach to stop these behaviors. I wouldn't, anything that's scheduled level 4 wouldn't even be an option for me. That's psychiatric, that's lockup. So the children that I be working with, some can have behaviors, and some just come from a circumstance of their environment. Like I have another nephew, her brother, who's in a level, well, it's a foster home. Had he been in group home, it would have been a level 3, but it's therapeutic placement, but he's there just because of the trauma endured from the other 3 in the house, where he didn't have any problems. So he's in a placement, not doing, for his own doing. So it varies, it really does. But I'm really trying to make sure that I do a screening process I get kids that I can be effective with. I'm not trying to open this up as a mom and pop shop and just do whatever. No, I want to try with being in the system with these kids and working with them, the volunteering, I see the voids. I see what they're missing. The lack of just basic needs sometimes. One of those articles that I sent around, I mean, one of the kids had to be in lockup and there was like black worms swimming in the toilet. And he was in the jail having to be locked up and he's being in there 23 hours a day. It's just the mental strain that it causes these kids to have to be in emergency rooms and in the lockup unit most of the time, so they can't leave because they don't have staff trained to sit there and watch these kids. The ones that are there to watch people are psychiatric patients. These kids aren't there for that, so they're often put off into a separate locked up unit in the hospital and kind of just left there. And some have been there for up to 50 nights. So if I can provide a placement, I mean, I know it's minimal. It may not only be 4 children, but it's 4 children not staying in a jail cell or not staying in an emergency room or in DSS couches. The trailers that they have, I don't know if you guys have seen them. It's just, I'm trying to do something good and try to bring them in. If I can make a difference, just at least a couple of kids, that's what I'm striving for. You know, because these kids are gonna age out at 18 and then they're gonna be wandering our streets.
Yeah, I commend you for what you're trying to do. I think what I have seen in the past though is that they've had, when they put group homes in, it's usually like away from highly dense population, like more out in the county, so that they can't run away easily because it's miles and miles and miles to the next house, or it's definitely not in an area that's urban.
Mhm.
They can't get on a bus, they can't hitch a ride with somebody in a car that's passing by, that kind of thing. I just question why you would pick an urban area versus an area out kind of secluded, I guess.
Well, I guess I don't see it as a barrier being in a high density neighborhood. Actually, I think what helped sway me at the last meeting is one of the board members growing up in foster care. Somebody made a difference to him. He's on the board, I'm sorry, the planning board. So growing up in a neighborhood for him, he voiced that, you know, there is no objection to it because there's nothing wrong with it. These kids need to be shown that they can succeed, that they can come out of their circumstances. If you just throw them to the wolves or whatever, you know, they're gonna survive on their own. So that's why I don't see a difference in whether it be the county or the urban area, because the supervision is gonna be so high. You know, at the group home that I've had worked at, the kids actually get quite mad at us because we're in their business so much. There's not much that we miss. You know, when they come in, we have temp checks, they're patted down, actually. And bags are emptied, they're searched. You know, safety is the number 1 priority. And then we're gonna work on therapy and we're gonna try to get them to a place where they can be productive. So I don't see that there's a difference whether it be urban. Quite frankly, urban brings everything closer, you know, community centers, YMCA. I'm a big sports fan. My kids are all in sports. One's in band. I push for those things, and that's what I'm gonna be pushing for the group home kids. If my kids do it, these kids can do it. So I'm trying to just enrich their lives and try to make a difference. I mean, whether it's in the county or the urban area, I mean, I have a farm out in the county, farm animals. They can come out there and enjoy the farm animals too. I mean, so they can get a little bit of both experience. I just never felt that it was that much of a big deal on whether.
How many staff members are you looking to have?
I have 4 so far. And depending on how many kids I start off with, I mean, it's gonna be slow. I'm not gonna have like a whole household. I mean, I could, but it's only 3 kids, 3 to 4. So if I need, you know, to expand, I do have options for people to do that. They haven't gone through the training process yet.
But they'd have to be there 24 hours a day, so that would be a minimum of 8 people, if you gotta have 2 per.
Unless you do 12-hour shifts, you'd have to do 12.
Yeah,
We
but you
hadn't,
can only work, I mean, are you doing more than 40 hours a week?
If I have to at first, then I will. It's not, that's not an issue for us. I'm, I didn't think about how many people that I should have trained at first, but with the giving that I'm not gonna be opening for at least another 2 months, that does give me time. I do have 3 other people who are interested. I've ran background checks on. Um, I just kind of stopped. And right after Thanksgiving, things got halted. We had the COVID Christmas and stuff. And so, I didn't get to go ahead and continue with some of the trainings. And then the holidays came and it was just a big mess. So now we're getting back on track to making sure that I can get the trainings in place. So if I need more employees, I can go ahead and get them trained.
The complaints I hear from people that work at group homes, have been that, they're supposed to be relieved from their shift and no one comes in to relieve them. What is your protocol for handling, situations where employees are sick, or they don't come into work, they don't report for work? What is your protocol?
Well, I guess I'm miscounting. Well, considering that I'm on call 24/7 besides my husband, we will switch off. I guess I would technically have 6 employees at this time if you count us 2. So me planning on having, we'll have phones just for the business. I will be on call 24/7 as well as my husband. If it's not me, it will be him, I should say. So, we'll cover anything that needs to be covered in that instance.
I had a question about the property values in the neighborhood that you had mentioned that it would not negatively affect property values. What types of, do you have any type of corroboration for that in terms of any studies that have been done or anything like that?
I
that
don't
would
have any
show?
studies that would be done. I was just going based on, we're getting estimates, so there's a stone wall there that needs to be replaced. It doesn't just, like, the front area doesn't look that pretty. I'm trying to spruce the area up with the different landscape. Maybe possibly paving the driveway. Right now it's gravel, kind of like dirtish. There's plenty of parking, but I'm trying to make it look a little bit better. Plus with the fencing, the newer look, right now it's kind of, it's been there since Lord knows way before we had the property. So it is kind of looking a little outdated. I want to update everything. I want to eventually, we're looking into trying to get the back area just flattened out a little bit, because when you do go up to the park, it is a little bit of an incline. But small cars and stuff and even trucks can get up there. But I'm just trying to make it look better and more appeasing. There is like a cement pad in the background and in the backyard for a basketball court for the kids. So with all that being in a contained area, I'm just, upgrades on the house, making it look better. We have currently put on the front porch, railings, and, it's all wooded in now, so that, we're trying to update the house, the parents slowly.
Yeah, and I mean, we appreciate that you're trying to upgrade the property, but my concern is, like I said, not so much with the way it looks even, but with I hate to use the word stigma, but the stigma of having a group home in a neighborhood like that. I was hoping you'd have some kind of professional study or something you could show us that would show us that there would be no devaluation of the properties, or that other group homes have not caused a devaluation of the properties, the surrounding properties. Because, there's some people that don't want to buy a home in an area if they know that there is a group home there.
Well,
So that's kind of what I was looking for. I know that you intend to keep the property up and you're gonna do things to improve it. But my concern is for the surrounding properties and what might it
Item.
do to their resale value and things like that. Does that make sense?
It
Is
does. It's just, with being like a group home, it's not, I don't plan on advertising out in the front home yard, like, hey, this is a group home. There's privacy issues with the kids, HIPAA, even the parents can't know where they're at. Only person that knows where that is DSS,
Right.
They can't have electronics. So there's no outside communications like, hey, I'm here to come get me. So, with the improvements and, the supervision, they can't be outside without staff. So, the damage to other people, I really do feel is highly unlikely. But I don't have any studies professionally.
Okay.
I didn't even think about it, to be honest.
So when you're applying for a special use permit, one of the things in applying that is providing expert testimony, either from like an appraiser or somebody that has expert knowledge and things, to be able to provide that kind of, documentation ahead of time, just for knowledge.
Yeah, that's what
Did
I
you wanna
was
say something?
kind of looking for.
Yeah, that's item number 4 under the 6 conditions that you're required to meet.
Mhm.
Have you, in working in the group homes, have you had situations in which you've had to call law enforcement?
Let's see, we did call, we had one incident where we called where the child was threatening to harm themselves. Once they go to the point where they threaten to suicide, or, try to physically harm another person, then we have to call, for a hospital evaluation. That's the main thing. The group homes that I worked at, we did come up with incentive programs. Now, kids threaten, oh, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna leave. But when you talk to them and do the de-escalation tactics, we have the incentives for them there. A lot of group homes don't allow them TVs or gaming systems. These are things that you have to work for points. So a lot of times the kids, when they see that you care and you're there for them and they have things awarded to them that they didn't have before, and it's more comfortable environment, you don't have to deal with runners. They've been in the system 9 times out of 10 and they know where they're coming from and they've already been in a better place. That's why I'm trying to make as maybe an upgrade to the group home scene, I guess you could say. It had a very successful outcome. I mean, I gotta say, I know of one kid that threatened to leave, but I don't know of any runaways, based on how the program was ran. Will I not have any? I can't say. But the main thing was self-harm.
Okay. Is there anybody else here to testify in regards to this special use permit? Any of the council members have any other questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
But concern that you think through your staffing plan to ensure that you have, because it's 24/7,
Yes.
the kids are going, and so,
I don't, and I'm sorry, I didn't think I made this clear. There's other programs within the DSS system that we can take advantage of, which would be Community Navigator, the Say So program, there's links. Some of these programs offer assistance for these kids. They come and get them, they do mentorships. So it was not so much as them going to be, at the house all the time. They're, the core summers and, stuff like that. I will have to vamp up my employees. But I apologize, I'm just all over the place. But, when they come home from school, we have, therapy, there's groups, either their mentorship. It really depends on the child's behavior plan and what they have in place with DSS when they come into the facility. But there's a bunch of different programs, either it be drug abuse, behavior specialists, just the mentorship in general. So they will be out of the house in the community interacting, not just kind of just school home. Like it's more than that. We're trying to make it as normal as a family, like as if a family with 4 kids moved in. I mean, to me, it really isn't much different, but I've been in the field for so long that, to me, that's really what I'm trying to portray it as. I don't plan on having a sign out front saying, glowing lights like group home. I mean, some of the residents may know.
I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
it's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do too.
Because-
But it is.
It's a wonderful thing that you're
It's-
trying to
yeah.
do.
Okay, so going to need a motion to, close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to make a motion that we deny the special use permit based on the conditions that it, does not further the goals of the Graham 2035 comprehensive plan and is, not in conformance with the suburban residential development type. The development does not comply with standards of the development ordinance. The development does not meet all 6 conditions as required under section 10.144 of the development ordinance. The use will, I believe the use will, materially endanger the public health or safety if located where it is proposed, and, developed according to the plan as submitted. That it will substantially injure the value of adjoining property that is there for the use of public necessity. That the location and character of the use, if developed, is not in harmony with the area, which is primarily residential, and for what the development, where the development is to be located and in general conformity with the plan of development for the Graham planning area. That, you know, it just doesn't meet all the 6 conditions in which to allow the special use in that particular area. Do I hear a second?
I second your motion.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We wish you the best of luck, ma'am. Just think that the location in which you want to place that is just not, it just doesn't meet all the requirements that would have to meet in order to be approved. But we do wish you the best of luck, in that field. I know it's a difficult job, and, we appreciate you being willing to handle that.
Would you like your
Megan, do you need a copy?
Here you go, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And Megan, what I have versus what I have online is different. Is there this voting delegate? Which one is correct?
There's no voting delegate. I don't know if that's a prior year or what. Your next item is to discuss the special use permit process.
Okay, sorry. I'm just trying to find that. Is it not posted on the website? See, right? No, not. Bobby. I need to hit refresh or something?
No.
Yeah, but this month says December 12th.
There's one.
Oh, makes no sense. You're saying, he's saying the same thing I'm saying.
Yeah, except you need to go to documents under SharePoint.
So new business. This is a council discussion. And I'll just recognize the Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland to discuss the legal process of special use permits.
Thank you, Mayor, and I probably, ask, Chairman Ward if he would maybe help with some of this conversation. I know this was brought up, last month's meeting at the request of the planning board for council to add it to this month's meeting to discuss, how they would like to handle the special use process, moving forward. We used to have it where special use had a two-step process of having two quasi judicial hearings per se. They would go through it with the planning board. And then it would be passed to council for the final decision. 160D came, there were rewrites. And partially, I think we went away from it mainly because the applicants were placed into a situation of having two quasi judicial hearings. And we end up working against ourselves if planning board heard the items and the findings and conclusion went one way, then council would go another way. And there was that potential that we could actually have our planning board work against our council. So then we went with how the ordinance was written with 160D, which basically has planning board review the application packet and then make recommendation to council that the application is complete. So now we're coming to council to see whether or not we want to maintain that setup, or would we want to have the applicant just go to one board, either that be the Board of Adjustment, who's a quasi judicial board already, and hear the item, or come straight to council and have the council hear that item. Or we had talks of possibly doing away with special use and looking into other mechanisms such as conditional zoning to pick up and handle the special use items, which would then make it legislative and flow through planning board with recommendation to council. So with that all being laid out, and Chairman Ward, if I missed anything, okay, please let me know. But essentially, we're looking to council to see how you would like for us to move forward with the special use process going in the future.
So, I appreciate your input. I did contact, and talk to Mebane, including Lawson Brown, about, why did they still do it the way Graham does it? Do y'all feel some kind of way about it? And think he said that special use still has, in his opinion, still has a very viable, purpose, especially if you get, very large industrial type, uses. He talked about, people wanting to, use property for sexually oriented, purposes. Several different things that might be, considered not necessarily in the, public good. And being able to, go through those 6 elements, to affirm the reason. I think he feels like maybe in the past, there needs to be more training, maybe with council members and, even, when boards were looking at it, even back then, not to get us in a legal situation and to make sure that we're wording, especially obviously denials, because nobody's gonna fight an acceptance of something if it's accepted. But obviously if something's being denied, that you are very careful in the words that you use when you, cite the reasons for denial, just as you are in a court case. I mean, a judge has a listing of findings of fact that he gives before he renders his decision. And those findings of fact are what appeals are based on. Same thing in quasi judicial hearings. So, you know, when you take people that aren't familiar with the law and they get elected on these boards, I think, you know, maybe having a better process for, talking to people about, just like if you're interviewing somebody for a job, there's certain things you can say, certain things you can't say. You have to stick to the facts. You can't, consider opinions. Quasi judicial hearings are difficult because you can't go and visit the site property. You can't do your research. I'm a researcher. I like to do my research before I like to come prepared. And you come, and then a lot of information gets brought up at the meeting that you don't have time to go necessarily in research. But again, like a strategy training on that would be to say, we've heard a lot of evidence here tonight. I don't feel comfortable making this decision until I have, you know, a list of this, you know, I don't know, so many things that I need to have clarified, and that can't be done here tonight. So you make a motion to postpone it to the next month until you can get that information in. But I think council members sometimes, I think, get pressured, feeling like they have to make a decision right then, and sometimes we don't have all the information because you can't do it ahead of time. It makes the council seem, I think, sometimes unprepared when it's not that we're unprepared, it's just that we're not allowed legally to go and really kind of get the information that we need to make a good decision. So my feeling would be to take the planning board out of it, and that if someone has a special use request, that would come directly to council, and it would either be a yes or a no. We would have the opportunity to meet with our legal counsel in the event of a no, to be able to make sure that we're wording that decision correct legally. But I'm all for hearing what you have to say, Bob.
Number one. Number two, then, is there's a element of prejudice can enter into it once it's heard in one body and goes to the other. So bottom line, two things. Number one, it's best to have it heard by one board, you know, and make that decision. And number two, I think you develop some consistency the way things are heard and the way you approach it and the way you make the decision.
I think the only thing that we have to be concerned about is that, you know, notice, you know, people, when people kind of get up and upset about things happening, they'll hear about it in the planning board session, and then it comes to council. Whereas, you know, if it just comes directly to council, if nobody has, I don't know, read about it or know that it's going to be an issue at the meeting, they may get frustrated with the fact that something passed the city council without them knowing about it. But for special use, you notify everybody that it affects right within how many feet of the property?
Well, it's adjoining properties, but I think we go out more than 100 feet. The problem that you have, I think, you're always gonna have, say it's 100 feet, for example, the person that's 120 feet, you know, you're gonna always have that property that sits outside. But you have multiple ways of making folks aware. You post on the property. So you pass by, you see this bright yellow sign, there's that notification. Obviously, we mail out stuff and then we put the ad in the paper. So you try, you hope that you hit someone with one of these mechanisms to make them aware of the meeting. And I think from a staff perspective, we've always noticed where people will somewhat lay out in the planning board, from the planning board meeting and show up to the council meeting because they know, if they want to take time out to come out for sometimes long meetings, they only want to do it once. And, we encourage them to come to planning board because that's where a lot of times things get hashed out and changes can be made to a closer look of what they're wanting. And then for council, y'all can, deliberate over that and move forward. But we do notice, quite a bit that it does tend to be a higher attendance for that council meeting on that item. In some ways more so than the planning board.
I think maybe if we put something in the process to make sure that, we send notices out, I don't care what the law is. I mean, as long as it's above, we can employ something that is, a greater burden than what the law is. I know we have to meet the minimum of the law, but if it needs to be 15 days before the hearing, just so that we can ensure that people get notice of it. And then also to the applicant, maybe somewhere on the special use permit saying that, understand that when you come before council, it does not mean that that council will render a decision that night. It may be something that it's a fact, I mean, judges do this all the time, don't they, Bob?
Yes.
I mean, they don't know until they hear all the evidence, even sometimes what questions they need to ask, and sometimes those questions can't be answered in that one meeting. And if that means that the council has to adjourn until the next council meeting, which gives people an opportunity to attend, or I just don't want to, I feel like sometimes when it comes directly to council, it seems to the public as it's a rushed process. They didn't know about it or they didn't hear about it. So maybe in the applicant process, it just say that, doesn't mean that necessarily there'll be a decision made that night. It may be and it could be that a decision's made that night, but I'm just saying that I always feel like when it goes to planning board, a lot of the stuff is hashed out, like you say, and a lot of questions and get answered and asked. And I feel like they do a really good job of kind of vetting the project. And, it's difficult sometimes if it comes right to council, especially in quasi judicial where we're not able to look at the property or ask any of the questions. So I just don't want to feel like obligated to make a decision right then. It's almost like what we talk about, we have this rule that says we won't vote on anything that's brought up that isn't already on the agenda, that you haven't been able to prepare for. It's the same sort of thing with this, but even though it's on the agenda, you can't really prepare for it until you start hearing evidence. Does that make sense?
I guess I'm nervous to even throw out the suggestion that it come to council, go through council twice because it's quasi judicial and I don't know how, even though it's the same board that's hearing it. I'm not
I don't
sure.
know that that has to be written in writing, but I'm just saying that I'm not gonna be like, I don't want to be pressured to make a decision without always getting all the answers that I need to make a good decision.
And I think that's council's prerogative. If y'all feel uncomfortable making that decision, I just don't know if we would want to put out that it may or may not be voted on because, the expectation is that there'll be a vote. But if council wishes to table it, you have that prerogative. To put out that it may or may not in some form or fashion, what if that person feels, they ain't gonna do it tonight? we'll wait till next month and then it happens. I wouldn't want them to feel that,
Right.
that there's that opportunity that it could go to the next meeting. That to me should be left to council.
Does the planning board, does the planning department try to encourage, applicants to, go the conditional?
Yes.
use? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, speaking from experience, conditionals always seem to be a simpler path for staff to be able to discuss items with the applicant. Like you said, there are certain things that are unable, like even when we have it on the agenda, I can't even be there. You have to leave the room. You know, it just there are a lot of nuances to special use permits that we have to make sure everyone is following and abiding by the rules. And it's when it's not legislative, it's more difficult. So from that standpoint, we absolutely, from a staff perspective, love conditional, but the applicant may choose that it's an easier path financially on their side because there are certain things conditional requires that has more depth with the site plans and stuff along those lines that they don't want to invest that much up front. And you know, obviously that's their decision. If they bring in an application and they bring it in on time and they want to move forward, then we bring it forward. That's how it works for.
do other cities, put any requirements on, like, the traffic study? Them coming, developer coming with a traffic study that says that they took traffic counts for 2 hours on a Tuesday. Like, I asked specifically that question. I said, if I don't want to consider that as a judge, because I'm acting as a judge, as competent testimony, and I don't believe that you're proving the safety, you know, in regards to the traffic, because you didn't do your work and you didn't want to pay for an actual traffic study. And, you know, according to Lawson said, you're absolutely right. He's like, it's supposed to be done during peak times. Like, should we say to these people that when you're coming for a special use permit, the expectation would be that you would do a traffic study and give them some parameters on what is expected for that? Or, I mean, we're just supposed to, you know, because when someone, for instance, says, well, we proved that. Well, no, you really didn't prove it because you did it for 2 hours on a Tuesday. That's not peak time, and that doesn't, in my opinion, meet the burden to make me vote in favor of that project. Would you agree with that stance, Bob?
Yeah, you know, particularly with respect to the traffic studies, you know, the one issue you've identified is that you'd almost have to have somebody to say that, you know, most typically are the models for a town of this size. If you measure the traffic on Tuesday from 2 to 6, this is typically, you know, that standard is used by DOT. I'd almost want to put them through the paces to, in effect, qualify as to how, you know, their study. In other words, the depth or the extent of the study. I would want to know how they believe that applied here in Graham. You know, I believe, like, let's say, typically, I think a study in Charlotte would be different than Graham. Let's say, for example, if you did traffic studies somewhere in Charlotte on Tuesday afternoon between 12 and 6, you know, versus Graham, also the area, industrial area. In other words, particularly if I had somebody on stand, I'd want to know why they selected what they did, and that was the only traffic study that they did. In other words, you've got to, and I'd want them to demonstrate some showing how that applied, and that would be sufficient for these circumstances, not that just everybody's doing it or we did it and this is conclusive.
Yeah, it was almost like they just want to check a box saying that they did a traffic study, but it really is worthless because, and you're not going to have anybody, you know, one of the things that was said was, well, you didn't have anybody oppose that. Well, a private citizen isn't going to go get a traffic study to prove your traffic study's wrong. you know, but to me, as a judge, you didn't even do a sufficient traffic study to prove your case. And that's all I've got. And I feel like we can win those. I mean, if we deny somebody for a legitimate reason and we state in our findings of fact that it was not harmonious with the existing community, it provided, you know, it caused public or health or safety issues. It was, it substantially inured the value of not just that property, but adjoining property owners. I think if you can do that, then I think, I mean, anybody can say they're gonna sue you for any reason, but I think as long as we are going by what the rules of law are, we're gonna win those cases. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay.
One thing you mentioned, I'll just pick up, you know, and I've seen it, you know, over the course of my career, is it like traffic studies, you know, and I don't know, I can't prove it, but you're right, they just want to check that box. It needs to be a little more substance. I want some kind of showing as to why that applied here, you know, why this standard, let's say this is a standard we use for traffic studies in cities of 18,000 or of 100,000, you know, something a little more than the fact they checked the box, we did a traffic study and, you know, it go on. So anyway, you raised a good point. It's more than checking the box. It's got to be more depth and more substance to it. And I think the council as a body, you know, can require that and can make inquiry.
Okay. All right.
So is it the pleasure of council that we bring a text amendment? Whichever direction we were gonna go with any changes, we're gonna have to come up with a text amendment regardless, but, is that something that you want us to work on where it's routed for one meeting?
Yeah, directly to the council. So that there isn't the argument by the applicant that they are being, disenfranchised by going through both, planning board meeting, which is quasi judicial, and then our meeting as well.
Madam Mayor,
Sure.
may I just weigh in with a couple of observations? And I guess I would start with the fundamental question of what is broke that needs fixing. The current system, as I understand it in Grantham, is the planning board looks at the proposed project. While it may be a special use permit, it is not required to be a special use, or excuse me, a quasi judicial hearing at the planning board phase. If you had your discussion with the Mebane city attorney, I think he would have explained that the way, just as a point of comparison, and I'm not totally sure what Burlington does, Bob would obviously know, but in Mebane, the planning board hears a special use permit, but not under sworn testimony circumstances. It hears it, it makes a recommendation, and it goes to the city council. Last night was a good example. Bucky's was a two-part recommendation, one for rezoning, one for a special use permit. Both were considered at the planning board, both were voted on, but without sworn testimony, without the formality of that. Comes to the council. Phase one, the rezoning is handled after 2 and 3 hours of testimony and public input, 60 people for public comment. And then they vote on that. And then they conduct a much more formal process for the special use permit, which followed between 1 o'clock and 2 a.m. And so I just don't see the part that you all have mentioned, you, I think, Mayor, in particular, the vetting aspect of coming through the planning board, to me, is an invaluable screening that serves both the council and the public well, in terms of kind of seeing if the people are really ready, if the applicant, if the developer is really ready and has things filled out in his or her proposal. With respect to the traffic study, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, if I'm not mistaken, these people always, when they're presenting their traffic studies, always say they have done it in compliance with DOT guidelines. Now, while you or I may think that 2 o'clock on a Tuesday might not be the right hour, I don't know their rules, but if DOT says that's an acceptable time and time frame and 1 day a week or 2 days, whatever their standards are, those are standards that have been set at a level, I don't want to say above, separate from the Graham City Council. One thing the council has as its option, which I know that the Mebane Council does, they hire their own person to do not a traffic study, but to assess the sufficiency of the traffic study that was done by the developer. So for instance, they'll come and they'll say, yes, we've looked at the traffic study done by the developer and it's legitimate. So be it. That's it. Other times, this hadn't happened that I've seen, but they could say, no, I think you kind of, you squirreled around a little bit too much with the times and neglected to do things. But that is another option. Unfortunately, it's more costly because the council has to generally contract for those things. But that is an option that's done at least in another jurisdiction nearby. But I would just urge, based on, again, just observing at various councils here mainly and in Mebane, that the council and the public are well served to have the screening of an initial presentation at a planning board level.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but did this come up because somebody was saying that they were disenfranchised by having to go through the 2 meetings? Is that the reason? Or 160D or something?
You speak on that.
Madam Mayor, I brought it to the staff's attention that I felt like it was a waste of time at the present when we was being instructed not to take any action. You could sit there and listen for 2 hours, but not to take any action with no recommendations or anything, sending it on to council, that it was a waste of time for the planning board to hear it if they couldn't take action upon it. So I asked for staff to ask for clarification of what council would like to proceed with. If y'all are.
Is there a reason why they can't make a recommendation?
Well, I guess they could make a recommendation, and maybe if it's not sworn testimony, but with the understanding they got a 2-step process, they could do that. But actually, I could see some problems if you would actually vote. That could be a problem, you know what I mean? Because people have to go, 2 hearings for the same thing. I mean, that could.
But they have to do that now for everything that,
Yeah, but zoning is legislative, special use is a quasi judicial, it's a different standard. And we're talking about special use permits here.
well, how is Mebane able to do it and not have a problem, but we're no longer able to do it?
They not have a quasi judicial hearing though, right?
It is not held in a quasi judicial form. They hold a hearing. It is a special use permit, but the planning board votes and makes a recommendation on that is then sent to the city council, which holds the formal quasi judicial hearing with the sworn testimony and the clarification of your credibility and so forth, all those things that you went through recently. But the planning board had a full hearing on its own and made its own recommendation.
Let me make sure I understand. They make a recommendation.
Yes, sir. As I understand it, of both with the most recent example being last night, but in others, because when this came up one time before, I think I mentioned that my understanding of the Mebane attorney's interpretation is that it went through two steps.
Vetting
But-
processes.
But the first one is not, the planning board stage is not held under a quasi judicial format. I'll use that word, no sworn testimony. But it's, I don't want to say just as viable, but I mean, you get everything out. And the advantage, which has proven to be very significant in several cases over there, is often the planning board, frankly, turns it down. And then the applicant can make some changes in the proposal before they bring it to the city council, depending on if they think were the planning board objections reasonable and the neighbors, the planning board listened? For instance, again, Bucky's is a good example. The planning board recommended 6-3 against the rezoning and against the special use permit. But the council adopted it unanimously last night. But in fairness, it wasn't exactly the same proposal that came
Correct.
before the planning board. They made some changes. They moved some underground storage tanks from one place to another. They did a little change here in an entrance and so forth. And so they made some, what I think they would describe and ultimately would be described as improvements based on the reaction they got at the planning board level. And that's happened frankly 2 or 3 times. Now over there, part of the debate is, if I could just switch jurisdictions, is there's always a little bit of tension between the planning board and the council. Because if the planning board recommends it and you turn it down, or the planning board says turn it down and you approve it, there's, you know, a little bit of tension. Except that sometimes it's not the precise proposal. It did get modified in between being at planning board and coming before y'all. And a lot of times those are improvements that generally will make the council, or are more likely to make the council approve something that the planning board had turned down. But many times the objections of the
And
planning.
how would that be any different than what they go through TRC? I mean, that's a group of individuals that are not, it's not a quasi judicial hearing, and they're going through the motions of reviewing the plans and everything on a technical level, but still they're making recommendations for changes to the developer and then submitting that to planning board for consideration.
TRC is a staff level and it's based
I
on,
understand that, but I mean,
it's based on the viability of the project. Like if the engineering or DOT or utilities say that you can't do it, it doesn't come to planning board and the council. So you have to have the staff level review that's purely on a technical review level of whether it can happen or not. They don't look at any of the outside stuff that the boards that end up making decisions on them look at. So I think there's a huge difference in what TRC looks at versus what ends up coming to the planning board and council. And if it's okay with council, I would be glad to look over a planning board meeting from there, but I'm not familiar with how they run it. I just know the steps that they take to get to the special use approval or denial. And I can come back
okay.
next month and let you know if it's something that may just require us to do. It's the findings of fact that's probably throwing me off a little bit, because you had to meet all of those for y'all to make y'all decisions. And at one point you had to meet those for your recommendation to come to council. So that's an area that I want to see. Is that something that they also still maintain review of and say whether or not they meet it and all that? And if that's the case, then, you know, it could be a consideration to run it that way.
If I could just add too, Mayor, to give you one more illustration back to your traffic example. Again, I don't know the details because we're not at the TRC meetings. But one thing that was mentioned last night is that the company had done a traffic study, which it presented like March or sometime way early, almost a year ago. And based on TRC input, they were asked to have other dimensions addressed by the traffic study. And so they presented last night the traffic study and 2 addendums that were done in response to TRC questions about the traffic, basically not being satisfied, to use your kind of earlier example, not being satisfied and asked them to look at this, look at that. And then they brought back a more detailed address. For instance, one of the things they looked at, I don't know whether this was in the first one, but they looked at what is the impact on a Saturday. And at least in that particular kind of context, that was the idea that would be a heavier day than a weekday for that kind of project. But anyway, that's there were changes that could be looked at. The Bucky's project, just by illustration, went through the TRC, they said last night, 5 times. So they would make changes, come back. TRC would say, yeah, that's good, but over here you did something else. I think the other difference, if I'm not mistaken, Bob, is Burlington Council doesn't deal with special use, do they? It's done all by Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment.
Right. So. Just.
Do you mind looking at that? Is that the consensus of the council
Yeah,
to
that's
allow
fine.
him to look at
Yep.
that? Come back. Aaron, can you bring up real quick, what the, what the, what the, well, the district for, the historic district for Graham? Mhm. Have you been able to find out for Bank of America? That's in our historic district, right? So for those of you that don't know, Bank of America is going to be closing effective in April, and we need to try to reach out to them to do something to make sure that this property is not going to get on the ground. And that we do something to make sure that it's right, that it's preserved. They do have, historic preservation deeds. And so, I just want to make sure everybody knew about what was happening with that. If we have to all reach out as council members to talk to someone there at Bank of America, Aaron's trying to work on that. But I just wanted you to be aware that he's trying to work on that to try to make sure that we're, trying to do something to make sure that that doesn't get gone and that it gets reused. Moving on to the public comment period, I have a Joshua Bear that has asked to come to speak to council. If you could please step to the podium, state your name and your address.
My name is Joshua Bear. I live on 219 West Hardin Street in Oneida Mill Lofts. Thank you for letting me speak. My issues are with the crosswalks in downtown Graham, specifically the one where Hardin Street meets Maple, just right in that area where all the downtown shops are. I've noticed there's no drainage right there at the crosswalks, and when it rains, like today, the crosswalk could be here and a pool of water would be halfway out the street. I know that doesn't make a difference when anybody driving, but it does for people who walk like myself. I don't have a vehicle right now. That's a very big issue because I have to go out in the middle of the street just to get around without getting drenched or getting hit by a car. I don't know why there's not any drainage right there. I think there needs to be because it's a very big safety hazard in my opinion.
Can you again say where it is?
The one particular is right down here where Hardin Street meets Main Street. So right there where like Sally's is, Green and McClure, the
Sandy's, you mean?
Sandy's, yeah, excuse me, I apologize. Right in that area right there, it gets built up so much, right in those crosswalk areas where it's way out into the street. So you literally have to walk around into the street and oncoming traffic just to not hit water.
Is that worse since the repaving?
It's kind of always been like that. I've noticed it. I mean, the last 3 years I've been walking without a vehicle, so I've noticed it more in the last 3 than I was driving. But it's just building up. I noticed there's no drainage, so it all kind of just runs down in that area and it builds up to where you can't walk. Also, I've been having, and it's just in that area around the courthouse and stuff, it's not too bad because it's all kind of, I guess, seeping down to where that's at. Another issue with the crosswalks, just the constant speeding. Like especially right at Hardin Street and Maple, that little connect where people are going to hit the interstate down on, Maple Avenue, or they're coming down Hardin off the interstate. At 5 o'clock, man, it's like a raceway. I wouldn't mind if there was police posted up down there. I know we're trying to keep the streets safe. That would be a good area to have one posted because I can walk down there with my phone at 5 o'clock and catch at least 6 people running the lights, or even in the crosswalks where you have the man. You have to pay attention because those people in that right lane are just not having any concern for anybody. And, my daughter almost got hit. I've almost got hit. I'm pretty sure other people have. So I just, instead of complaining about it and wondering what we can do, I wanted to take it to council and see if there's anything we can do. I do realize that DOT owns some streets and we don't own those. I know that. But if
They
we could
actually
get,
own both of those,
okay,
Main Street and 54.
okay. Yeah,
Um,
if we can just get if they could do something about that drainage, or just, because that's becoming real
The
hazardous.
drainage after the paving right there in front of Witt's is terrible. I mean, it's like, it's a puddle from here to Joshua. I mean, it's really big. And people have complained about that quite a bit. It wasn't like that before, so it's definitely, they've changed the grade or something there.
Okay.
I mean, that one on Hardin's always been like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always been that way.
Yeah, and
Since
it-
I've lived here.
right. And it's
Oh.
just, it's so terrible because then, you have like people with their kids and are having to walk out in the middle of the street, and then you got trying to watch for people turning. And especially, like I said, down on Hardin and Maple, I mean, thank goodness I am aware, but if you got somebody that's not paying attention, they're gonna get hit or something.
Mhm.
And I've been even thought about even going down to the Grand Police Department. It's like, hey, can y'all get somebody down here to watch in these time frames in these areas? Cause it's getting crazy.
Aaron, can you please make a recommendation to, over to the police department to see if there's something we can do about trying to curb some of the speeding that's going on over there? I mean, I've stopped counting how many times the sign's been knocked down for drunk driving. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
just like a regular, every other week I'm texting, Burke saying, it's just knocked down 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw it,
but
yeah.
it's just over and over and over and over again.
We have our staff meeting tomorrow, and I'm sure, we can bring up, your concern to Bert and see if he can just, share that with DOT, hit or miss there, and then, of course, PD's at the table as well, so we can knock out both of those at one time.
That'd be great. I just want to kind of bring that before the council and everything, because it's getting a little scarce. I mean, I'm scared to kind of walk with my daughter sometimes, and I love walking out in town and don't really have an option. Because I don't drive, so I gotta walk. And even I work at Green McClure, so we've even had, truck drivers deliver our freight say, man, they don't pay attention up here in these crosswalks. I said, no, they don't. No, they've even made comments and with trying to get in and out with freight safely. So, thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you
you
for being
listening
here
to me.
tonight. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Any comments, Bob? Anything you have, Brian? Aaron, do you have anything?
No, ma'am?
Joey,
No, ma'am.
Ricky, Bobby?
I brought up to Megan and Aaron's attention, Bonnie has mentioned Gilbreth and not being able to see southbound. And I suggest maybe if they could install a mirror.
Gilbreth not being able.
You know,
Gilbreth and Maple,
Yeah,
when you're
Oh,
coming
yeah,
from
yeah.
Maine down
Yeah.
Gilbreth, especially when you're pulling out, trying to make that left-hand turn, or even a right-hand turn, but the left-hand turn is really hazardous because you gotta sit so far back because the line is painted, but you can't see. So I'd ask Aaron to look into that and see if maybe DOT could do something, even a four-way stop would help, but a mirror might help too.
Is there
So-
any way we can do something about the signage, especially coming up Elm Street? I mean, I sit at my window every week and see people take a left on Court Square. Luckily, I've never seen a wreck, but I've seen people cussing and fussing and.
Yeah, going the wrong way around the
And going
circle.
like a going
And I will say, in their defense, when you come up on that beside the soda shop, there is a sign there that has a youth sign and it has arrows both ways. But it's for pedestrians. It's saying there's pedestrians here. But I think people don't understand road signage and they think they can go either way. I think that's what they think that sign says. That's what I'm guessing. And the sign that says that the circle, I mean, we all look at things because we're from here, so we know that it's a right of way on Court Square, but people that are coming from other places obviously don't understand that. But the one-way sign is across the circle, and if there's a car or a truck parked there, you can't see it at all. I mean, at all. And so if there was something actually in the road that said this is one-way traffic this way, it would really help, even if they just added it to where the yield sign for the pedestrian is. Just saying one way this way would be a huge help, I feel, to people that every single day they go the wrong, I mean, literally every day. Okay. I think that would be helpful. Our signage there is really old and, maybe it needs to be looked at to be updated. Anything else? Megan, do you have anything?
I had
Oh,
something.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
I just wanted to bring up that there've been some allegations of misconduct raised regarding an advisory board member. And I wanted to see if maybe council would consider having a special session to investigate and look into that situation. So I would like to do that if we can.
Okay.
Set up a special session to discuss it.
Okay. Everybody agree on that? Okay.
Okay.
Megan?
Yes, yes, sir.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
All right. Do I hear a, motion
to
to
adjourn?
adjourn?
Got to go into
Mayor,
closed
make a
session.
motion that we go
Closed
into
session.
So
closed
sorry.
session.
Sorry. I got ahead of myself.
Yeah. Oh, we would love that, but
Okay.
Not 2 a.m.
So
So
we'll
we're
go
good
into
still.
closed session and then we'll come back. We will be discussing, home commercial real estate, just city of Green.
Make a motion, we go to closed session.
a second.
I'm sorry to be nitpicky, but if you could read I know it's long, but if you could read the full motion, because it cites both
Thank y'all for
statutory
coming.
authorities for which you can go into closed session. Please and thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we go into closed session pursuant to, terms of, North Carolina statute 143 318 items A and 3, to consult with, attorneys or, employees to retain the public body in order to preserve the, attorney-client privilege, in the public, basically, that's it. That's all we need to say. I gotta read it all?
I don't mind reading the full motion if someone wants to just say, unless one of you want to read it,
I can read it for you if you want. City Council will consider going into a closed session pursuant to the terms of NCGS 143-318-11A3 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged regarding Cone Commercial Real Estate Investments LLC versus the City of Graham, Alamance County Superior Court Case Number 23 Charlie Victor Sierra 1909, and to discuss personnel pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A6.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Getting old, man. Yes, ma'am.
I can't even slide back without hitting it. I'm, look, I already asked him that. Yeah. Yeah, he's still in. We got.
Yeah.
It's staff's opinion that, there would be no recommendation.
That's pretty basic.
Who is the school? Has had a, is it the same people who have them? No, with same people only if they lease it somebody. But on their website, they say they do accounting services, electrical services, insurance services, maintenance services, pest control, travel services, training, remodeling, marketing, job. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And or the,
So they start asking questions today. Aaron don't know nothing about it, because they hadn't come before us, and then finally there's an email that surfaces. Cameron says, yeah, they got that, somebody come before them. Okay. Okay, well, they here don't follow them, all this and that. I don't think it does. I think you can ask for, come get special training and ask to put that in there, but then you're very limited.
well, that's the thing, it used to be that. Or was it just children, or was it just children that?
I don't know.
There's been some sort of thing.
Yeah, I gotta go back and look at it. But still, even if it's a daycare, okay, a daycare, well, a daycare's not gonna be having parties and wanting 4 police officers.
And certainly not parties that have alcohol.
They can police the bring metal detectors and screen for guns and drugs. Hey, you screen for guns and not drugs. I mean, want everybody to search for it coming. I think it's so. They, they sign up for the law, and they I don't look at that. They find, we don't have that thing.
Oh, these people are here. That got denied, and so now they're looking at that.
Well, execute solution that. Now, if they have it over there, then I think it's gonna be done. About if they have cost of it. It seems like to me, it's put- and, you know, and maybe go from over here to think about, well, I'm gonna have it down there in Greenville. Well, somewhere down there. That's why. And of course, if you notice that, Harrison, you know, I think you wrote article, it's just. Yeah. That's just another lawsuit coming.
Oh, yeah.
And then they got one more pending. One more, last one, they got one further pending. But why did they? We had to get a good answer on why they just dropped. I think they said there was some, problems identifying the, well, that's what he claimed from the beginning. I don't think it's a problem. No. Cause they got him right there at it. Yeah. He was, the gas can man, or, you know. Yeah. Quite a few of them. what you do for the year, you can't play all on part of the group. No, I had so, the trap. And so it's all this hand it got to the point where it's like that. Grab stuff. And are you right handed or left handed? Oh, wow. Yeah, left hand or right hand. If they were respectful and all, you're gonna have to be tough. I just got this on today, a whole lot bigger. Yeah, hit you two real quick. Yeah, real quick. Oh. School all two school board accounts and Elon. Elon. The over half of well, now we're concerned that we call, we have to report call. So now they're sending an email out a little while already.
Oh.
Make a motion, we go back into open session.
Second,
All in favor? Okay. Came back from our closed session, in which we, met with our attorney. And then we also dealt with a personnel issue. I make a motion, that we increase, City of Graham city manager's pay, to $162,000. And when would that take effect?
If I could just ask that it is coincides with the implementation of the new pay plan, which would be January 14th.
Okay. That would take effective January 14th. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, we got to,
What?
don't we have to?
oh,
Okay,
we're good.
okay, cool.
Yeah, no.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Do I hear a second? All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Megan, you're gonna keep my computer, right?
You don't have SharePoint on your.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to use that. I don't know
That's how
to
you